Welcome to Bite Size Podcast. Today we are talking about creatine. Melt belly fat with one change.
Wow. Okay. That's quite the headline, isn't it?
Right. It definitely makes you stop and think, okay, really, one change.
Exactly. Like, what's the secret here?
And well, that's kind of what we're digging into today. We've sifted through a lot of info on fitness, nutrition, longevity, just overall well-being.
Yeah, trying to do the heavy lifting, you could say, to pull out the things that really matter for you.
We're going to cover quite a bit. Obviously, creatine in muscles, that's kind of the known thing.
Sure.
But also some maybe less expected stuff, like brain health, fat loss links, injury prevention.
It all ties together in some interesting ways.
Our aim is just to give you the most practical, useful takeaways. So, okay, let's start with creatine. We know it helps with muscle strength. That seems pretty established.
Oh, absolutely. The evidence for increasing muscle mass, boosting strength, it's really strong. It works by helping your muscles generate energy faster, that ATP stuff.
Like a quick power up during a workout.
Pretty much, yeah. Lets you get maybe 1 or 2 more reps, push a bit harder.
Okay, but here's where it got interesting for me. This brain connection.
Ah, yes. That's a really exciting area of research.
It's not just muscles. Apparently, creatine can be good for your brain, especially if you're, like, sleep-deprived or super stressed.
Exactly. It seems to help brain cells maintain their energy levels under stress. And there's even some emerging research, quite promising, suggesting it might help protect against or slow down conditions like MS or Parkinson's
Ah,
by supporting brain bioenergetics, basically giving your brain cells more fuel.
and I think it's important to say this isn't just a guy thing,
Hmm.
right? Not just for bodybuilders.
Oh, definitely not. That's a total misconception. Women can benefit just as much, especially considering factors like sleep deprivation, stress. It's relevant for everyone.
So how does it actually work then? Because people hear muscle building and maybe think steroids, but that's not it at all, is it?
Not even close. Creatine is about providing energy, ATP recycling. Steroids fundamentally change your hormones, your gene expression, completely different ballgame. Creatine is fuel.
Right. Fuel. And doesn't it also, like, pull water into the muscles?
It does, yeah. That's one effect. It helps hydrate the muscle cells, which can make them look a bit fuller and might even contribute to growth signals.
Okay. And are there different types? Like, do you need a specific one?
There are a few forms. Monohydrate is the most studied and usually the most cost-effective. Hydrochloride is another popular one. For most people, monohydrate works just fine. Dosage is typically based on body weight.
What about that loading phase? Do you need to do that? Take loads of it at the start.
You can, it gets your muscles saturated faster, but honestly, it's generally not necessary for most people to see the benefits, and skipping it avoids potential stomach upset some people get during loading.
Okay, good to know. So, creatine covered. Now back to that headline. Melt belly fat with one change. Where does that fit in? Is the one change just starting?
Well, that's certainly part of it, isn't it? Just deciding to begin a health journey can feel like the biggest hurdle sometimes.
It really can. And you hear that phrase now, sitting is the new smoking. It sounds extreme, but it highlights how damaging long periods of inactivity actually are.
It's a powerful analogy. Finding that initial drive, that spark to prioritize your health is so, so important.
And it often comes down to understanding your why, doesn't it? Not just, I want a six-pack.
Exactly. That surface level goal often isn't enough to keep you going when things get tough. You need something deeper.
How do you find that deeper why?
There's a technique, sometimes called the 5 whys. You start with the surface goal, like, I want to lose weight, then ask why. Maybe it's to feel better in my clothes. Okay, why? To feel more confident. Why?
Keep digging down.
Keep digging until you hit something fundamental. Maybe it's about overcoming a feeling of inadequacy or wanting more control or avoiding pain you associate with being unhealthy. Many people who stick with fitness long term have some kind of pain point, something they're moving away from.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so if the one change isn't just starting, what about the actual melting belly fat part? Nutrition has to play a huge role there.
Oh, absolutely crucial. If we're talking specifically about reducing body fat, especially belly fat, consistent nutrition is non-negotiable.
Where do you even start?
First, take a look at the obvious things. The low-hanging fruit, too much alcohol, sugary sodas, nightly ice cream habit. Be honest with yourself there.
Right, the easy wins.
Then look at the less obvious things. Things like portion sizes of carbohydrates, rice, pasta, bread. They're easy to overeat because they taste good and don't fill you up quite like protein or fats.
And hidden sugars. They sneak into everything.
They really do. Yogurt, sauces, cereals, even supposedly healthy packaged foods. You have to become a label reader. Look at the sugar content per serving. And fat content too, remember? Fat has more calories per gram.
So reading labels is key. What else?
Prioritize protein. Seriously, it helps you feel fuller for longer, which naturally helps manage calorie intake. Plus, it's essential for preserving that lean muscle mass while you're losing fat. It's a win-win.
Can you give an example of what that might look like day to day?
Sure, something like having a good protein source at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Maybe structuring meals around that protein. Thinking about timing around workouts can help too, like having some carbs and protein beforehand for energy and afterwards for recovery.
Even if dinner ends up being a bit late sometimes, life happens.
Yeah, consistency over perfection. Even a later meal, if it's balanced and protein-focused, is better than grabbing junk food. Though, interestingly, eating very close to bedtime can affect sleep.
How so?
It can keep your resting heart rate elevated while you sleep because your body's still busy digesting. Ideally, you want your body focused on rest and repair during sleep, not digestion.
Okay, good point. And for that really stubborn lower belly fat, does consistent nutrition really make that much difference?
It's probably the biggest difference maker, honestly. Fat loss tends to happen in a sort of top-down pattern for many people. That lower belly area is often the first place fat gets stored and the very last place it wants to leave. Strict, consistent nutrition is usually what's needed to finally tap into those stores.
So it's not just calories in, calories out. Quality matters.
A calorie deficit is necessary, yes. But the quality of those calories, getting enough protein, fiber, nutrients, and the consistency of your habits are paramount for sustainable fat loss and specifically targeting stubborn areas.
Makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Sleep.
Yeah.
How critical is that in this whole picture of health and longevity?
Absolutely critical. You can have the perfect diet and workout plan, but if your sleep is terrible, you're undermining everything.
Is it about the total hours or?
Both matter, but consistency might actually be even more important for many people. Going to bed and waking up around the same time, even on weekends, really helps regulate your body's internal clock, your circadian rhythm.
And aiming for, what, 7, 8, 9 hours?
That's the general recommendation for most adults, yeah. 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep. Sure, there are rare genetic short sleepers, but for the vast majority of us, that's the sweet spot.
Okay, so nutrition, sleep. Let's talk training again, but specifically for longevity. That one change could also be about how we move, right?
Definitely. It's thinking about movement not just for today, but for decades to come, building a resilient, functional body.
So what should be the priority there?
Prioritizing muscle is huge. Counteracting that age-related muscle loss, sarcopenia. That means strength training, lifting weights in a way that challenges your muscles to adapt and grow, or at least maintain.
Building and keeping muscle. What else?
Don't neglect balance and reactivity. As we age, reaction times can slow, balance can decline. Training those skills specifically is vital for preventing falls, which become a major risk later in life.
Like that story of the 89-year-old with the obstacle course.
Exactly, that's the spirit. Continuously challenging your body and brain in different ways. Keep moving, keep learning new movements.
So if fitness is a pyramid, what's the structure?
You could think of strength as the base, then building muscle mass on top of that, then maybe performance, specific skills. But underneath all that, the foundation, the roots, that's stability, flexibility, and mobility.
Okay, flexibility versus mobility, what's the difference again?
Flexibility is more about the length of your muscles. Can you touch your toes? Mobility is about the range of motion at your joints. How freely can your shoulder or hip move through its full potential arc? You need both.
And let's be honest, that mobility and flexibility stuff,
Yeah.
it's often the first thing people skip.
It absolutely is, but it's so incredibly important. You could almost call it the fountain of youth for movement. It keeps your joints healthy, allows you to move efficiently, and prevents compensations that lead to pain.
Can you give an analogy?
Think of a rubber band. If it's dry and stiff, poor flexibility, mobility, it'll snap easily under tension. If it's super stretchy but weak, poor strength, it doesn't generate much force. You want a rubber band that's both strong and pliable. That's like having good strength and good mobility.
Does it take a lot of time to improve mobility?
Actually, no. That's the good news. Even 5-10 minutes a day, consistently focusing on your tightest areas can yield significant improvements over time. Consistency beats duration here.
Are there any specific exercises you'd recommend for hitting those key areas for longevity?
Yeah, there are 5 I really like because they cover multiple bases. The single leg Romanian deadlift, or RDO,
What's that good for?
Great for hamstring flexibility, glute strength, and crucially, balance and hip hinge mechanics.
Okay, number 2.
The squat and reach. This helps open up the hips, but also focuses on improving rotation and extension in your thoracic spine, your mid-back.
We'll come back to the thoracic spine, I bet. 3rd.
The sumo stance hold. Again, great for hip mobility, especially opening up the inner thighs, and encourages that upright posture, thoracic extension.
4th.
A posterior chain push-up. It's like a push-up, but you push your hips back towards your heels in between reps. Works the whole backside of your body, glutes, hamstrings, back extensors. Great for posture.
And last one.
Hip abductions. Strengthening the muscles on the outside of your hips. Seems simple, but so important for pelvic stability when you walk, run, or do single leg movements. Prevents that hip drop.
Why these 5 specifically? What's the theme?
They target common areas of weakness and restriction: hip mobility, thoracic mobility, single leg stability, posterior chain strength. And they emphasize movement in different planes, especially that side-to-side or rotational movement we often neglect.
Like strengthening those hip abductors for side-to-side stability.
Exactly. You can be super strong moving forward and backward, like a baseball player hitting a ball. But if you lack control or mobility in rotation or side-to-side, that's where injuries can happen.
Okay, you mentioned the thoracic spine. Let's dive into that. Why is the mid-back so important?
Okay, think about your spine. You have the neck, cervical, the lower back, lumbar, and in between is the thoracic spine attached to your ribs. Its main job, besides protecting your organs, is rotation, twisting your torso.
And what happens to it with modern life? All the sitting, phone use.
We tend to lose extension. We get stuck in that rounded, slumped posture. And here's the key. If you lose thoracic extension, your ability to straighten up, you automatically lose thoracic rotation. They're linked.
You can feel that, can't you?
Oh.
Try twisting when you're slumped versus sitting tall.
Big difference, right? And that limited rotation matters hugely for daily function, reaching overhead, turning to look behind you, preventing falls, and of course for any sport involving rotation.
Does it get worse with age?
Definitely. Studies show a pretty significant decline in thoracic mobility as we get older, like 25–35% between ages 50 and 60. It contributes to that hunched look and restricts movement.
And does a stiff mid-back cause problems elsewhere, like the shoulders or lower back?
Absolutely. It's a major contributor. If your mid-back can't move well, your shoulder blades can't glide properly, limiting shoulder mobility. Then, when you try to compensate, often your lower back, which is meant to be more stable, takes on excessive movement and strain. That's a recipe for low back pain.
Wow. And you mentioned breathing, too.
Yes. If your thoracic spine is compressed and stiff, your ribs can't expand as fully when you inhale. This can limit your lung capacity and potentially make you feel less energetic.
So improving thoracic mobility sounds crucial. What are some simple ways to do that?
Simple things work well. Wall slides, where you stand facing a wall and slide your arms up, focusing on keeping your mid-back extended. Lying face down and doing gentle rotations with a dowel or broomstick across your shoulders. Or a bridge pose where you lift your hips and reach one arm up and over, opening the chest and rotating through the mid-back.
Again, just a few minutes consistently.
Consistency is everything. Short, focused efforts add up.
Okay, let's talk training principles. Intensity versus volume. How long should workouts be?
There's definitely a trade-off as you get older, or even if you're just busy. Prioritizing intensity, working hard within your sets, might be more beneficial and time efficient than doing tons and tons of volume, which can also lead to more wear and tear on joints.
And rep ranges. Does it have to be low reps for strength and high reps for muscle size?
The research is actually showing that you can build muscle effectively across a pretty wide rep range, maybe from 5 reps all the way up to 30 reps per set, as long as you take those sets close to muscular failure. Effort seems key.
But form is paramount, right? You always hear perfect form.
Good form is crucial for safety and targeting the right muscles, absolutely. You need to control the weight and feel it working where you intend.
But what about that last rep or two when you're really struggling? Does form have to be perfect then?
This is nuanced. To really stimulate growth, you often need to push close to failure. At that point, some minor form deviation, maybe a slightly shorter range of motion, a tiny bit of momentum might be acceptable if the exercise still largely resembles the intended movement and you're in control. Complete breakdown where it looks nothing like the exercise, that's risky and ineffective.
Okay, a controlled breakdown, maybe. And going back to posture, that nerd neck thing, is that just a neck problem?
Often, it's actually a thoracic spine problem manifesting in the neck. If your mid-back is rounded forward, your neck has to extend excessively just for you to look straight ahead. So, fixing nerd neck often involves improving thoracic extension and mobility, not just stretching the neck itself.
Injuries. It's a big concern, especially as you get older. You mentioned mobile joints needing control and stable joints needing to stay stable.
Exactly. Injuries often happen when mobile joints like shoulders and hips lack the muscular control to handle the forces going through them. Or, conversely, when stable joints like the lower back are forced to become too mobile to compensate for stiffness elsewhere, like in the hips or thoracic spine.
So strengthening the controllers, like the glute medius for the hip.
Precisely. Those muscles that control side-to-side movement or rotation are often underdeveloped but are crucial for stabilizing mobile joints during complex movements.
Can you train them easily?
You often train them indirectly without realizing it, doing lunges or split squats slowly and controlled, especially if you hold a weight only on one side. That unilateral load forces those hip stabilizers like the glute medius to work much harder to prevent your pelvis from tilting.
Smart training. Okay, putting it all together. A
Yeah.
weekly plan. What's a good split? Upper, lower, push-pull legs?
Both are great effective splits. Upper-lower works well, training upper body one day, lower body the next. Push-pull legs groups things by movement pattern. Push day is chest, shoulders, triceps. Pull day is back and biceps. Legs is legs.
How would you schedule a push-pull legs week?
Maybe push on Monday, legs on Wednesday, pull on Friday. You could put rest days or active recovery cardio days in between, like Tuesday and Thursday, then the weekend for rest, or maybe a lighter full body session if you feel recovered.
And how many exercises or sets per muscle group? Is there a rule of thumb?
A general guideline is somewhere in the range of 9 to maybe 16 hard sets per muscle group per week. So for chest on push day, that might be 3 exercises for 3 sets each, totaling 9 sets. If you train it twice a week, you'd adjust accordingly. Smaller muscles like biceps might need a bit less.
What about biceps specifically? How often do they need training for growth? And how fast do you lose gains if you stop?
Recovery varies a lot between individuals and even muscle groups. Biceps might recover faster than, say, your lower back after heavy deadlifts. Listen to your body, look for progress. Training frequency can boost growth if recovery allows. As for losing gains, it happens gradually if you stop training completely, but muscle memory helps you regain it faster when you return.
Interesting. We've got this hand gripper here. Grip strength is that important.
It's actually a really good indicator of overall health and strength. And yes, you can definitely train it directly with things like grippers, farmer's walks, or just holding on to heavy weights.
Okay, let me try this. Squeeze, whoa. 130 right, 110 left. Definite difference.
That's pretty good. Normal to have an imbalance. My turn. Squeeze. Okay, 100. Shows you can build it up.
Definitely. Now, back pain. It affects so many people. The stats are pretty bad, aren't they?
Shockingly common. Something like 80% of adults experience it. It's a massive cause of disability and lost work time globally. A huge issue.
Can you quickly recap the spine structure and common causes?
Sure. Cervical, neck, thoracic, mid-back, lumbar, low back, sacrum caseus, base. Pain can come from muscle strain spasms, that's most common, or disc issues, herniation, degeneration pressing on nerves, or nerve compression itself, like sciatica.
And pain down the leg usually points to...
Nerve involvement, yeah. Where the pain travels can indicate which nerve root is affected, often by a disc issue at a specific level in the lumbar spine.
But surgery isn't usually the first answer, right?
Absolutely not. The vast majority, like 95–98% of disc-related pain, gets better without surgery. Physical therapy, targeted strengthening, improving mobility in the hips, and thoracic spine, that's the mainstay of treatment.
Bringing it back to thoracic and hip mobility again.
It's all connected. If those areas don't move well, the lower back takes the strain. Improving mobility there often alleviates pressure on the lumbar spine.
Feels like maybe our modern lifestyle is just a mismatch for how our spines evolved.
There's definitely an argument for that. Think about ancestral populations, hunter-gatherers. Even when resting, they were often in active squatting or kneeling positions, moving frequently. We spend hours slumped in chairs. It creates imbalances.
Are standing desks the answer then?
They can help break up prolonged sitting, which is good. But standing rigidly still for hours isn't ideal either. The real key is frequent movement changes. Stand, sit, walk, stretch. Change posture often.
What about hanging from a bar? Does that help?
Yeah, spinal decompression. Even a brief passive hang can gently traction the spine, create space between vertebrae, and relieve some pressure. Simple but effective.
Okay, circling back to supplements. We covered creatine and protein. Anything else worth mentioning? Quality concerns.
Honestly, for muscle building, creatine and adequate protein from food or powder are the heavy hitters with the most evidence. Focus on getting enough protein. Maybe aim for around 1 gram per pound of your target body weight if you're active.
And creatine's benefits beyond muscle seem solid now.
The research on brain health, cognitive function under stress, and potential neuroprotection is growing and really compelling. It's much more than just a muscle supplement.
But we need to be careful about which brands we buy.
Yes, quality control can be an issue in the supplement industry. Look for reputable brands, ideally ones that do third-party testing for purity and potency to make sure you're actually getting what the label says.
Any quick tips on food choices or sleep habits to avoid or prioritize?
Maybe try to minimize artificial food dyes. There's some debate around them. For sleep, melatonin can help reset your clock short term, but consistent bed-wake times are fundamental. Cool, dark, quiet room. And pillow choice matters. Flatter is often better for neck alignment than super fluffy ones.
Any connection between back pain and sleep?
Definitely. Pain can disrupt sleep, and poor sleep posture can worsen pain. Morning stiffness is common. One little trick. Loosen sheets at the foot of the bed so your ankles aren't forced into pointing down all night. Let your calves relax, which can surprisingly help lower back tension for some people.
Fascinating. Okay, as we wrap up this, wow, incredibly detailed deep dive, what's the single most important thing you want people to take away?
Honestly, it's just don't get paralyzed by all the information. Don't feel like you have to do everything perfectly from day one. Just start somewhere.
Small steps.
Small, consistent steps. Chip away at it. Any investment you make in moving more, eating a little better, sleeping a bit more consistently, it's a good investment. It compounds over time. Just begin. That's the real one change.
That's a fantastic message to end on. Thank you so much for sharing all this incredible insight.
It was my pleasure. I really enjoyed the chat.
See you soon with another guide like this.